Match week 1 of the Premier League season is right here, right now, starting this weekend. And today on Forecast Sports, on this Forecast Room episode, I'm going to be previewing this first match week of the Premier League 2026-27 season. I cannot wait. This is such an exciting season because it feels like a new era, a new time for Premier League football to change history and bring in these new managers, these new players, and see how it tactically evolves within the next season and so forth. I can't wait. We're going to see some really interesting things within the next few weeks. A few hints, a few changes, and a bit of drama, I would say, within these first few match weeks. We cannot expect managers to have their systems perfectly implemented within their new sides. But we're going to see different looking sides and different tactics. We may see a different looking Arsenal despite them winning the title and having pretty much a pretty similar side to last year. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all works out for all these Premier League sides. And that's why this preview episode, this Forecast Room episode, I'm going to be heading through some big stories, some matchups to watch, what to watch this weekend. We'll have a forecast face-off which is the first of the series, and it is for the most influential player in the Premier League, but we'll get to that. Plus, my upset storm warning, and my picks for this weekend. I cannot wait. This is a great weekend to watch football. And the Premier League is back. So be ready. I mean, the biggest story of the weekend has to be the Premier League opener, which is on Friday night over in England, or here in New Zealand, it is Saturday morning. But this is a massive match. Arsenal versus Coventry City. The league winners from last year in the Premier League and the championship winners last year in the championship. This is a matchup to give us an idea of what we are going to see from these two sides. And we are going to see some big statements, especially from these promoted clubs up to the Premier League. It's going to be interesting to see how they react to this promotion, how they look to target this season. It's always these first few weeks where we get the real idea and the big statements come through from those sides. We saw that last season, some big results for the promoted sides, and that overall ended up to see them, two of them, stay up in the Premier League. This season, it's going to be interesting. A lot are betting all three to go down. So the likes of Coventry City are going to have to put up some big performances and get points on the board early, because it's so key to get confidence and not be chasing the game late in the season. It's often these first few weeks or the first few months of the Premier League where the newly promoted sides actually have the opportunity to stay up. This is when they can fight for survival. It's not the last few months. It's often these first few months where they can catch teams on the opportunities when these sides are still implementing their systems. Now, it's another story this weekend, though, with Arsenal versus Coventry City. Arsenal are hugely settled, winning the Premier League and becoming a finalist, losing the final on penalties in the Champions League. It's really their time. They're going to have to put something really big on the board if they are going to beat Arsenal, the current champions of the Premier League. What do Arsenal have bringing into this match? I think when we look at Mikel Arteta's side, it's a really solid, incredibly strong, and a much deeper squad now with their new signings. This Arsenal side are going to be a difficult side to beat. And that's why Mikel Arteta just needs to settle these new players into the side and just keep momentum moving forward. He will have to change how his team plays because all teams do in the Premier League. But he can keep it relatively the same and have that defensive mindset. It's just about warming into this new season and kicking it off with a win, because this is a game where they are expected to win, not only by one goal, but by a couple, I would say. And it's really their time. They've just got to grind out the wins early on and get the game flowing. Get that flow, as these players, a lot of them have been come off the World Cup or a good rest, so it's time to warm back into that environment and get playing football again. This is a game Arsenal need to win. Coventry City, on the other hand, they will have had a big pre-season, and they will be ramping up their game towards this big match. If they can get a point in this match, that's a massive result for them. That is huge. That's a big statement. If they can do that, that is what they are aiming for, I think. Not the win. I don't think they have really much of a shot at all for a win against this Arsenal side, but a point is on the cards. And they're going to have to really scratch at the surface and find a shaky Arsenal side if they are going to do that. Now, they are coming off very different recent paths, as Arsenal have been winning hugely within high quality opposition, while Coventry City have been the dominant side for the majority of their championship campaign. Now, this is going to change. Coventry City will have to change their tactics to be able to compete against these Premier League sides and stay up. That's why there have been some big new signings within both these sides. Notably, for Arsenal, Bruno G from Newcastle. That's a massive one. And could we see him introduced early on? That's where it could lie. Another big signing, though, for Arsenal is Zolas. And him as a left winger, he has looked really flashy so far within this pre-season matches. I think we could see an interesting strategy from Mikel Arteta using Zolas here as well. Also some bets, like some players trying to push their case forward, I think, within the side, such as Martinelli, who may be on the horizon of leaving. That's a guy who has fell out of fortune within Mikel Arteta's side, and I think he's going to struggle for a starting position, so it'll be interesting to see where he comes within this. And the rest of the side, Zubimendi. Now, Bruno G looks like he's going to just stroll on into his position, so Zubimendi will need to push forward his case as well. It's an area here Arsenal have that depth, that really high quality depth. These players may go under the radar. They obviously will get time on the board, but we know Mikel Arteta does not like to rotate his sides too often. It's where these best players and these players under the radar need to push that forward and keep that competitiveness within the environment. But that's what makes a high quality side. Well, Coventry City, on the other hand, they've been busy. They have been busy, and a lot of people are backing them to be able to stay up. Some aren't, but some are. And that's just because they won the championship last season, and they've got that experience. I've got Frank Lampard managing them, so that's a big push forward for them. Now, I've liked where they've gone. Choana from Burnley, him as a left winger, I'm pretty sure he's an interesting signing. That could be pushing them up to that Premier League level. Plus Awaniyi from Nottingham Forest. That's also a big one. And it's this Premier League experience that they are bringing in. Now, we saw Sunderland. They went crazy in the transfer market and have been relatively quiet this season. They went crazy to stay up in the Premier League, and we haven't seen these sides go crazy, these promoted sides. One of their big signings, though, was Granit Xhaka, and I don't think we've seen a statement signing yet, such as a Granit Xhaka, from really any of these sides. That's why I think they may struggle. They may find themselves not having that Premier League experienced head within the lineup. That's why I think Arsenal should have it in the bag this first match. But it's going to be an interesting match to look into. I can't wait to see how Coventry City line up and push forward their case within the Premier League. Try push a statement win early on in the season. Okay, after the break, I have some really interesting matchups to watch. 3 of them. 3 big matchups to watch this weekend. Well, there certainly are things to watch within the Premier League coming up this weekend in match week 1 of this season. And it's especially looking at the managers and the players. I think there's obviously, as usual, the usual promoted clubs we like to watch. But also, it's the fact that there is such a regeneration of the Premier League within the manager area of sides. There have been so many managerial changes. And that means so many new systems, new players as well coming into that environment. That means this is a big opportunity for teams to stamp their mark on this Premier League season, to get those huge points early on and just get ahead of the rest of the pack. Now, one of my matchups to watch is the Manchester City versus Bournemouth match. Now, Enzo Maresca and Marco Rose are new managers to both these sides. Enzo Maresca for City and Marco Rose for Bournemouth. And I'm really excited to see how they face up. I think there are going to be new systems implemented from these 2 new managers. And it's going to be interesting to see how they live up to the expectations that have been held by the past managers at their clubs. We know at Bournemouth there was Eddie Howe and then Andoni Iraola. Andoni Iraola absolutely transformed Bournemouth and kept them rising upwards the Premier League table. We saw them have their best ever season last season. And that is what they have to compete with. What the expectations they have to compete with this season in the Premier League. And I don't know if they will get there. Marco Rose will be regenerating the side, and they've lost some big names. I think with Bournemouth, they do also generate a lot of players to sell. They're bringing in a lot of young players, such as what Brentford and Brighton do, but push their cases forward and make them into great players and then sell them, like they did last season with Anton Semenyo and seasons prior to that as well. I don't know if they will be incredible this season, Bournemouth. It's got to be one of those teams that you don't know what to expect from them. And Marco Rose, he's got experience around the world, and I can't wait to see how he lines his side up this weekend. That's absolutely something to watch, how he lines his team up and gets them going forward within this weekend. Manchester City as well, without Rodri, who has gone to Barcelona over this transfer window. They are looking to have a much different side, much different midfield and defence to last season and the seasons before. It feels like a completely new generation of Manchester City. Now, after Pep's departure and Enzo Maresca seemingly moving into this position and trying to bring in a similar yet different system, he's going to be, as every manager is, different to every other manager. But he does play similar football to Pep. He's coached under him and been around him. That Spanish influence as well that Pep brings, and Enzo Maresca has as well. It's going to be interesting to see how Manchester City shape up this transfer window. I can't wait also to see Elliot Anderson don the light blue shirt for Manchester City. I'm really interested to see how he works into that environment. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be cool to watch. I think this weekend it's so many new everywhere we go, but every team is going to be different and react differently to things that are going to happen in this first weekend, and it's about adjusting their sides. No one is going to be perfect, and we're not going to see perfect matches early on, but I'm expecting some entertaining football, and that is what we can always expect from the Premier League. So, other than the City vs Bournemouth match, I'm also really interested to watch the matchup of Everton and Crystal Palace. Now, these are two sides who have really hit the Premier League slowly over the past season or so. Quite underrated teams this season, I believe, after seeing a lot of people's predictions. Everton and Crystal Palace are relatively low in their predictions, and they are in mine as well. I thought Everton and Crystal Palace will finish bottom half, as they often do, and Crystal Palace to get relegated. They don't seem the perfect sides, I don't think, at the moment, but they will likely prove me wrong here. Now, what also really appeals to me about this matchup is the fact that two players swapped between these two sides as well, and it's quite interesting to see them match up in this first match week. Now, I don't know whether these two players will start in this match this weekend, but Dwight McNeil and Johnson from Crystal Palace is moving to Everton and McNeil to Crystal Palace in a swap deal. I'm really excited to see how these two players enter this weekend or further on within the match weeks, because these are two players who can add a lot to attacks. And it's just interesting to see how these two sides want to vary and switch it up a bit with this transfer. Now, Everton and Crystal Palace, we know David Moyes for Everton. He's been slightly inconsistent over the past season at Everton, and I think Everton will be hoping they can bring a bit more consistency and get what they want from their new stadium. It hasn't really lived up to the expectations that Goodison Park brought. I think we're going to see a new Everton this season though, and they have to evolve. If they don't, then it could be a tough season for them. I'm interested though to see the likes of Dewsbury Hall and Iliman Njai, those creators. They have some really exciting players within their lineup, and I'm interested to see how they set up this weekend. Crystal Palace, on the other hand, they are a thin squad, I would say. They're not the best team, I don't think, in the Premier League. They don't look great, but we can expect a lot from the likes of Mateta and Pape Sarr. No, not Pape Sarr. Sarr. Anyway, and they have a lot of exciting players moving forward. I'm just interested to see how they react with their new manager and how they set up. They've been a back three for a long time. It's interesting to see how they work this new team out. The last matchup I want to cover is also Brentford versus Spurs. Now, Brentford seem a side who build signings. Their signings are for the future. Young players who can change and become a lot stronger within their team. And they're quite a side that like to do things differently as well. That's where Brentford are often overachievers. They are such overachievers in the Premier League. And then we flip the switch to who they're playing, Tottenham Hotspur. They have been well and truly underachievers with the amount they've spent in the past few seasons. I think it's going to be high expectation season for Spurs, and if they can't get it together under De Zerbi, it could be an interesting season. I think they've made some statement signings on the other side. Brentford have made some quietish signings that could change how they play, while Spurs have been very noisy in the transfer market with some statement signings of Tonali, Fernandes from West Ham, Van Hecker, Robertson and Senesi. Premier League proven players who are going to change how they play and build a really experienced side for Tottenham, and they've lacked experience in the past few seasons. But I think those players are going to change that. Now, moving up front, though, I don't know about Spurs. The questions still remain there. And that's where I think they could struggle. But when these two teams match up, Spurs and Brentford, we are going to see some interesting matchups as well. Looking up top, Thiago, who had such a good season last season, is going to have competition for his place with Anthony and Callum Wilson. And that builds the competitive nature and builds the players to work to a higher level within their team. That's why I think Brentford quietly doing the business they need to build them into a really competitive side in the Premier League. I cannot wait. I cannot wait for this matchup. Brentford, they're going to be different again under Keith Andrews. Are we going to see the likes of the long throw, a new tactical change? Are they going to show that this weekend? On the other hand, under Spurs, are we going to see a completely different team under De Zerbi? And are they going to look a little bit more competitive, a little bit more consistent or calm on the ball? Tottenham Hotspur versus Brentford. Watch in for that. Now, after the break, I'll be talking about the forecast face-off, the new game that I have created that will be for within every video I make for the next month or so. Plus, I have an upset warning. I have a storm brewing who is going to go down to an upset this weekend. And then my forecast picks as well. Okay, forecast face-off, what is it? Okay, it's a game that I have decided to make where I name the matchup and then you vote who gets through to the next round. We have a knockout of 16 players within the Premier League. And the knockout, the player we are trying to find is the most influential player in the Premier League in this season. Now, how do you answer this? You go to my channel and you hit on the homepage and it'll be on my posts, so go in there and vote. But today, the first matchup of this new competition is Erling Haaland versus Jordan Henderson. Who is the most influential player in the Premier League? Erling Haaland or Jordan Henderson? You pick. But I am going to give each of these two players some props for this face-off. Now, Erling Haaland, what a player. What a player he has been for Manchester City. If you look at most influential players, this guy influences nearly every game with the amount of goals he scores and the ability to switch on at any moment. Erling Haaland is incredible within the Premier League. And how big has he been for Manchester City over the past few seasons? How many, if he was not within this Manchester City side, would Manchester City still have reached the heights they got to? I believe not at all. Erling Haaland has been massive. At least 20 goals a season is just huge. Leading Golden Boot every season. This guy cannot be understated for the influence he implements into City. Then on the other hand, Jordan Henderson. Now, if you look at what he did at Liverpool, his ability to captain and give leadership to that Liverpool midfield was huge. Then, the next season at Brentford, we saw that in an even better spotlight. Jordan Henderson was so good for Brentford last season, and he really led them to Europe last season. He was huge for them, and you cannot understate that experience, that leadership ability in the Premier League. You can't understate the impact that causes within the side. Now, he also was picked for that England squad at the World Cup. That just shows he may not be in his prime for his on-field ability, but I think most people believe he was hugely just picked for his leadership, his experience within that England squad. Jordan Henderson was huge for England going far in that tournament. And just being picked in that squad shows the aura that surrounds him. Now, with this matchup, I think I would have Erling Haaland clearly because of his influence, the ability to just consistently score goals, and his ability on the pitch to always show up. That's so key for what Manchester City have wanted, and any team would want a player like Erling Haaland and the influence he brings. Now, after the break, please vote on that now. But also after the break, we have a storm brewing. Get ready for this weekend. Watch out. Okay, I've said it before and I'll say it again. There is a storm warning. Alert, go everywhere. This weekend, I think there is going to be a major upset. And it's not the obvious one within this weekend. It's not any of those promoted sides to get a win this weekend. I think it is that Newcastle are going to beat Liverpool. And in the past, this is not an upset. Or at least not a big one. But with nothing really happening in the transfer window coming in for Newcastle and a lot going out, plus a new manager and a really poor season last season for Newcastle, I think despite this, Josley, the new manager, is going to kick them off really, really well with a hard-fought win for their side. That would be incredibly huge for Newcastle to gain confidence. I don't think from here they are going to put up really good matches and go far within this Premier League. I think they're going to struggle still. That's just due to the transfer market, what they have done, and their squad depth. But I think this Newcastle side have the ability, they still have the players within the side to get over the Liverpool hurdle. And I don't think Liverpool, on that note, are going to be the hurdle we think they will be. Now, under their new manager, Andoni Iraola, that's where I think Liverpool are going to struggle, at least within the first few weeks, while he is implementing the system. Because I've heard a lot about Liverpool, Andoni Iraola, and how much work he expects from the players. I think Iraola is going to push these players early on a lot, and that's where I think this first match week they are going to be under the pump. I don't think they will put out as much quality performances as we expect them to within these first few weeks and even months. I think Liverpool are going to struggle early on with this new system coming in, and that's why I did predict them to get in the bottom half of the league. It's going to be an entertaining match, for sure. Newcastle and Liverpool is always such a groundbreaking rivalry, and it always lives up to expectations. I can't wait. Get firing. This weekend is going to be epic. And imagine if Newcastle were able to get over the Liverpool hurdle and get their season kicked off with a statement. After the break, one more break, and I'll be coming back with my final predictions for the weekend. Okay, my forecast picks for this Premier League weekend. I cannot wait. So let's get into it. Arsenal versus Coventry City. How big is this matchup? I've talked about it earlier, but this is big for these two sides. But Arsenal, as most know, will be too good for Coventry City, and I'm sure of it. 3-0 to Arsenal, I predict. Manchester United versus Hull City. First game for Hull at home, and first in the Premier League for a long while. This is going to be an interesting matchup here. Manchester United coming in to this season with a lot of positives. Not a lot going on in the transfer window, but they seem a solid side under the manager who has been with them for a decent while now, Michael Carrick. They could be a real title contender, and that's why I think they will struggle a little early on within this match against Hull City. It feels like a banana peel side, but Man United will get over the hurdle and win 1-0. Everton Crystal Palace. I've talked about this one as well, and I think this is going to be a really high scoring encounter. I expect there to be a lot of creation within the match and some interesting movements between these players. I can't wait to see these new players, new systems come into fruition. And Crystal Palace with their new manager, I think get it kicked off with a strong 4-3 victory over Everton. Ipswich v Sunderland. Newly promoted versus promoted from last season. Sunderland surely will get over this, but only by a little bit. 2-1 to Sunderland. Ipswich, I think, will struggle-ish against these high-quality opposition, but they should be able to get a goal, I think, against Sunderland, despite Sunderland being such a strong-looking side. Nottingham Forest v Leeds. Nottingham Forest, I'm actually really interested to see how they get on, how they sort out under Glasner. This is going to be a really exciting new period for Forest if Glasner can get them moving forward. I think they can beat Leeds 2-1. Just Leeds don't completely stand out to me. James Trafford, huge signing for them, but other than that, don't really stand out hugely. I think they'll just try draw out the wins every few match weeks and just scathe through the points. I think this season Leeds, they're not going to be, I don't think, top half contenders. As we move forward, Brentford playing Spurs. I think this will be a 2-2 draw. You know, Spurs, despite making so many telling transfers so far, De Zerbi won't be perfect. De Zerbi's side won't be perfect. His system won't fully be implemented, despite him being within the side for a while. I think Keith Andrews, he seems settled at Brentford, and they had such a good season last season. I think Brentford can get the draw. They'd actually be disappointed with a draw, I think, within this match against Spurs. But I believe these two sides seem like they are going to be fighting for similar positions this season as well. Brighton, Aston Villa. Now, we haven't really talked about these two sides. Brighton have been quite quiet, but we know how consistent they have been. But Aston Villa, also very consistent, but a huge turnover within their squad. Morgan Rogers, Ezri Konsa, and a lot more leaving the side. Luca Dean, these guys have all left, and they're brought in young guns, Manzambi, Garnacho, those sort of players, but they have been hit with injuries as well. This could be interesting to see how they settle into this Premier League season, but I think they can get the job done against Brighton. This will be a close match, one to watch as well, because these are two sides who could get quite far within the season, and it's interesting to see whether they will face up and change tactically. They need to evolve. 2-1 to Aston Villa. City, Manchester City versus Bournemouth. I think City will get the job done. 3-1. Just because Bournemouth are looking new. City, yes, they are new, but they also have a lot of quality, a lot of world-class players. So I think they will get the job done early, and that'll set them apart from those sides, that class. Newcastle v Liverpool. This is an interesting one, and that's the interesting part is I predicted Newcastle to beat Liverpool 2-1. That's a statement win for Newcastle if they can get it done. That will be huge. I cannot wait. I cannot wait to see Newcastle set up this season because they've got so much on their shoulders, so much to do. Josel. Liverpool, on the other hand, still not perfect yet. We haven't seen them much under Iraola, and they have to show themselves. Imagine them getting out to a slow start. There will be some chaos within their fan base. Fulham feed Chelsea. Chelsea, I'm actually really liking the look of them this season under Xabi Alonso. Now, I think they get the job done 2-0 against Fulham. Fulham, quiet achievers as well. I think they're a mid-table side and don't push Chelsea enough within this match. That is my forecast picks. How this works is if I get the correct scoreline, I get 3 points. I'm not expecting to get any correct scorelines, and 1 point for the correct winner. And I'll try beat my record over the season as we move forward. I cannot wait. This weekend, so exciting. The Premier League is starting again, and we have to watch in as times are really exciting at the moment. New everywhere. And I think we're going to see a bit of a new era as well for the Premier League. Some evolution of tactics and how the game is played in England. It's going to be a testing first week for a lot of sides as well. We're going to see new combinations, new tactics. So how do teams face up this weekend and look to attack this season? Watch in and listen in for more Forecast Sports. This is going to be an exciting season, and I'm going to cover nearly everything. Thank you for listening to this forecast room, and watch in this weekend.